It's Wednesday, November 18th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. The Club Barbados Resort joins a growing number of tourism players accused of broken promises to former employees who are now pleading for thousands of dollars owed to them. Yesterday, approximately 60 ex-staff from a range of departments demonstrated outside the St. James establishment demanding severance payments, which were promised and later rescinded. Many of the affected workers say that in addition to needing the money to pay overdue loans and rent, they want to provide a decent Christmas for their families after a year of severe financial hardship.
I think the same way how they instructed that they wanted all of their loans that were owed to them along with the uniform and the name badges, they wanted it in full from our first installment if we had loans. So the same way how they would like all of their money, we should have all of our money as well. Agreed. That was the agreement, and we should have it by the 21st. We are not taking anything else.
I have a mortgage to pay. I have children to feed. I'm the only person in my home that is working. And I went about and I spent my money accordingly, expecting to have money in my hand on the 21st. And now I realize that they sent us information saying that they're not going to pay us on the 21st anymore. And I haven't slept ever since that night. I can't breathe. This thing has me disturbed.
We have been disadvantaged twice. Remember, the Club Barbados was closed last year from June to about September. We opened in September, beginning of September. From September till March is not 52 weeks, so we were not qualified to receive the large amount of unemployment. We get what was owed to us. They send us a letter telling us they have no more for us. So from May till November, not a cent. Not 1 cent.
Their action was supported by the Barbados Workers Union, whose Industrial Relations Officer, David Ford, was on hand.
They never came back to the union to say, things have changed. And the union's position is, at the point in time that you agreed to pay the severance, you knew that you weren't opening back. You knew the situation with COVID. You would have already assessed your finances. Nothing has changed. So why now come back to this staff that have not received any money because they weren't eligible for unemployment? They barely got vacation pay, and from the 25%, the company took whatever the staff owed.
Come December 1st, inmates at Dodds prison will be able to see visitors again, although only virtually. Word of this from Home Affairs Minister Wilfred Abrams yesterday as he addressed Parliament on a supplementary to have maintenance work done at the St. Philip Penal Institution. Restrictions on visits were put in place amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and lawyers and family members of inmates recently agitated for a review of those restrictions. The minister said the infrastructure was now being put in place to facilitate the virtual visits.
And it's expected that by the 1st of November that we'll be able to resume interactions with the faith-based organizations, with the social services. Attorneys can have more access to their clients, and their families will be able to communicate or see them a lot easier. As it is now, there are limited opportunities because of the limited IT resources that are at the prison. By the 1st of November, there should be significantly more capacity so that more persons can avail themselves of what I believe is their right. You have a right to be visited by your family. If the law provides for it, you have a right to it. You have a right to speak, to be able to communicate with your attorney. You have a right in prison to practice your faith, and if your faith requires instruction from someone who is not in the prison, then you have a right to be able to access that person. So all of these things are being put now in place, Madam Chair, and it should be active by the 1st of November. I have the assurance of the Superintendent of Prison, and we've been treating it as a priority. So for all of those who have been asking recently in the press and in interviews, Madam Chair, that is coming on stream by the 1st of November 2020. So sorry, Madam Chair, the 1st of December 2020.
Abrams also unveiled a new prison farm program that will see inmates receiving a stipend for their labor. The initiative is also designed to facilitate prisoners' reintegration into society.
The farming program at the prison, to use an example, is under review because we don't just want to have a farming program that seeks to supply the prison or the prisoners with vegetables, but we want to use that as a mode of enhancing the opportunities for rehabilitation and re-entry, reintegration into society. At this point in time, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but at this point in time, we're looking at something revolutionary. We're looking at dividing the prison acreage, the available agricultural acreage, into perhaps 5 different farms, allowing independent farmers to have access to those farms well under supervision of the prison. So it's not just going to be a prison-operated program, but they're going to use prison labor. Whether it's not going to be free labor, we are looking at a system where the prisoners will be able to bank, or the prison can hold in trust, the stipend that the prisoners would earn while they're working on the farm.
The Small Business Association of Barbados is excited by the move by Unicom Barbados Limited to expand the financial options available to its members. SBA President Neil Corbin and Chief Executive Officer Senator Lynette Holder are elated that micro, small and medium enterprises will be able to benefit from microloans by the court's Ready Cash initiative. The microloans will allow those businesses to borrow up to a maximum of $20,000. Corbin said the offer comes at the perfect time.
Courts has really stepped up to the mark. They've really come forward at just the right time to offer what is so very much needed in the MSME sector these days, where persons they've kind of pulled out all the stops during COVID. They have supplied the island with many products through innovation. They have set up a whole delivery program among themselves and really pulled together, as true Barbadians always will. And they've really stepped up to the plate. But those things take money. Those things take finances. And what Courts has done is right on time, where the financing is being offered quickly. And that is really what is needed. Quickly, with no hassles. Obviously, they need to know what they need to know of the persons that they're lending the money to. But that is minimized in this case from what we heard.
Holder, meantime, explained that while the COVID-19 pandemic had led to difficult economic times, local businesses had been able to pull through by being innovative. However, she said innovation was not cheap, and the financing being given by courts would help in that regard.
The COVID-19 and what has happened has demonstrated the importance of innovating your business, innovating your processes, your products, and so on. And we're seeing some of that, which I think argues well. What we now need to ensure is that those businesses that have been able to innovate, that they can access resources for sustainability and competitiveness. And that is always our concern as a business support organization, lobbying for those resources to be available, those resources to be accessible.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our regional neighbors now, the Bermuda government says it plans to amend the rules for visitors entering the country amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Visitors may soon need to get a negative COVID-19 test in a shorter period, given an increase in imported cases. Health Minister Kim Wilson made the announcement last evening.
It is anticipated that in the near future, in a matter of days, we will be having new entry requirements with respect to testing requirements for visitors. And as such, all visitors will have to secure a negative PCR pre-departure test that is no older than 5 days prior to their arrival in Bermuda. Right now, the testing period is no more than 7 days before departing. However, as the availability of pre-departure testing has improved and the number of imported COVID-19 cases is slowly increasing here in Bermuda, we have decided that it is an appropriate time to make that change now. But we will continue to evaluate this protocol on a regular basis and adjust it as necessary. With those students that are studying overseas that are more likely to be coming home this month and next to visit family and friends, vigilance around returning travelers and compliance with the mobile quarantine provisions is particularly important. I want to emphasize that mobile quarantine requires that a resident or visitor with negative COVID-19 PCR pre-departure and arrival test results must still test on day 4 and day 8. Likewise, a resident or visitor with a negative day 8 COVID-19 test result must still test on day 14.
And finally, on the international front, U.S. President Donald Trump has fired the head of the federal agency charged with protecting the 2020 U.S. election from cyber attacks. More in this report from Reuters TV.
President Donald Trump on Tuesday fired his top U.S. cybersecurity official, Chris Krebs, in a tweet. Trump accused him of making a, quote, highly inaccurate statement on the security of the U.S. election. Krebs was the director of the Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and worked on protecting the election from hackers. Reuters reported last week, citing 3 sources close to Krebs, that he expected to be fired. The Trump administration has asked for content to be edited or removed from a website run by the Cybersecurity Agency, which is dubbed Rumor Control, that worked on debunking disinformation, including the claim that Democrats were behind a mass election fraud scheme. But under Krebs, election security officials have refused to delete accurate information. The agency has drawn praise from both Democrats and Republicans for the handling of the U.S. election, including praise for Krebs for his bipartisan work in the past 2 years.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.